Here we go. All right, good evening, everyone. This is Robert Stevenson. It is 6:06. I'm going to call to order the meeting for the 7th of May for the Suffolk County Granville Regional School District School Committee. Can I get a motion to enter into the meeting?
So,
Can I get a show of hands to enter into the meeting? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0. All right, can I get everybody to stand for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We have our consent agenda tonight, our minutes from 3/5, the fundraisers for the cross-country team in class of 2027 sneaker drive, and the digital popcorn sales. Anybody have any of those that we need to pull out and talk about individually? Right? We do have some warrants here that everybody can take care of those and get those signed tonight. That would be much appreciated. Superintendent Willard, do you have any correspondence this evening?
I do not.
Okay. Lucas, you're up. No, hand you the mic.
Too.
Yes, last time. Congratulations.
Should I say thank you? I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to go. That's true. I can always come back. All right, we've got a lot of stuff, both from me and Magnolia. Firstly, the Apple testing was on April 22nd and 23rd, and it went well. Students said it was pretty hard, but I think everyone did very well, so that's what matters. The performing arts program had a field trip on the 24th. We saw the play That Goes Wrong. It was very entertaining. It'd be lovely if we could do it here. I'm not sure if we could, but just putting the word out there. The connections facilitations went well after a date change due to some conflictions. Students were pretty responsive overall in the 8th grade. The PowerPoints used will be put on, I believe it's our website, the high school website, either that or the district. And surveys were also put out to students, members, as well as our connections leaders to get data on how the facilitations went, our impact, and what we need to do in order to improve next year. Also, this week, we are celebrating Child Mental Health Week, where our members and students are encouraged to wear green in awareness on May 13th. No, I think it's actually next week. My apologies. That day, there will be 5 businesses coming for all 3 lunches, and the SAD program, as well as the nutrition department, will also be setting up tables. The plan is to have connections and pathways, hand out green ribbons, informational programs to be handed out, as well as positive notes in chalk left on the sidewalk for everyone to see as they come into the school and leave. Also, math MCAS for grades 7, 8, and 10 are the 21st and the 22nd, with a makeup day on that Thursday. The juniors, juniors, freshmen, and seniors will get a half day on those days in order to prevent testing disruption. And so far, when we've done that, that's made the MCAS much easier for students, so it's working. In terms of senior week, it's been completely finalized. Our final day is the 24th. Woo! And graduation is the 1st. And I have to get back to you on like the actual events. I believe the 24th is also our drive around, and we have, I believe we changed it to like a picnic. No, it was always the picnic. We have the slideshow and like this.
Senior sunset.
Senior sunset, we combined them. My apologies, I'm forgetting things these days. At 17, I'm getting old. The Hampden District Attorney's Youth Advisory Board is having their annual conference at the Basketball Hall of Fame on Saturday, May 10th from 8 to 10 a.m., where all the Hampden District students will be commemorated for their hard work. Superintendents, principals, police, and family are invited by the DA's office. Southwick had 5 students participate this year, but unfortunately will only be able to send 3. And there's a note here, if you already have 3 students enrolled and they're not seniors, they can come back if they choose. So next year they'll be able to come again. So seniors Maggie Cronin and Mia Dolcinos worked with the Diversity and Inclusion Group, where they created a series of PSA videos about different high school scenarios such as sexism and ableism. Magnolia and 2 sophomores, Bridget Carrier and Josh Raymond, worked with the substance use program. And the group separated into 3 subgroups to create 3 different PSAs. Magnolia worked on a drunk driving one, and Josh and Bridget worked on a vaping one. All videos will be available on the DA's Instagram, which is at Hamden DA on May 10th. Also, Magnolia wanted me to add, Mr. Eplight's health class recently put up the dating violence cards from the district attorney's office that she mentioned at the last school committee. And speaking of Magnolia, I didn't even know this was a thing. Apparently, she won Student of the Year from the Elks Lodge in Westfield, which it's a shame she couldn't be here to congratulate her, but I think that's pretty cool. So, sorry, I didn't know what else. So for sports, track has a meeting tonight at Hope. Unified track also has a meet tonight at home against Holyoke. Baseball won 7-1 on their game on Saturday against Ware, and also won 9-2 against Wacona on Monday. They have a home game against Mount Greylock tomorrow at 4 and another on Friday away at Frontier Regional at 4. Girls lacrosse had their first game last Wednesday, which despite losing, were able to get their first 2 points versus Smith Vocational. They are looking forward to another game tonight against Smith and another on May 13th against Hampshire Region. Boys volleyball won their Thursday game against Commerce High School 3-0 and are looking forward to this Thursday's game away at Chicopee High School. And finally, girls softball won their Friday game at Holyoke High 17-10 and are looking forward to their game tonight at 7 p.m. at Wally Park against the Volk. There's a lot tonight, but. Yeah. Thanks for
Going out with a bang.
exactly.
Chairman Stevenson,
Yes, ma'am.
can I make the
You-
award?
Absolutely. I think this is a very appropriate time to do this. Lucas, we have a little
Something.
token for you.
Oh, well,
So just hang on.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, so Lucas, if you could come up here. The Southwick Talley Granville Regional School District has an official resolution for you. Be it resolved that the Southwick Talley Granville Regional School Committee hereby extends its congratulations to Lucas Karen in recognition of dedicated service as a student representative to the school committee. And we hereby convey our sincere appreciation for your valuable efforts, dedicated service, and assistance rendered, which has enhanced the image of the Southwick Talley Granville Regional Schools. And a record of these resolutions shall be permanently entered into the minutes of the school district. And it's signed by myself and Chairman Stevenson. And personally, I would just like to say, I have enjoyed your enthusiasm, your humor, your public, just your public persona when you're here, and you just bring so much life, and you're just gonna go so many places in life, and I can't wait to see what you accomplish. So thank you so much for what you've done to our school committee, and I'm gonna hug you.
I love
Say anything.
I'm gonna hold on, because I get emotional very
Me too.
easily.
Oh, thank you.
Lucas, that resolution passed 7.5. We threw the half into 3 of. I appreciate that. All right, at this point, we're going to our educational presentation. Chief Landis, you're up first. If you, the mic is live there at the podium. You wanna, we'd ask to see if Chief could come and, yep, should be live there. To give us some information, concerning the additional SRO that is in the budget that, was approved by the school committee. There was a question from one of our members last meeting to see if we could just get some additional info to make sure that everybody is clear on why we're looking for a full-time second SRO, sort of some background information on what the SRO sort of does for the district and why that second SRO would be needed. And I know that you have had some conversations with the other chief of police in the other 2 districts concerning this proposal as well. So I'm gonna let you kind of lead us on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. So this endeavor kind of started a few years ago when we applied for an additional school resource officer we identified we thought was necessary. We attempted to go for a grant for this. And the grant, we didn't receive it basically because of where we stood financially as a community, and what the federal government assesses when choosing a community for these types of grants. So although the need was definitely still there, the grant itself, we didn't qualify. So a year goes by, Mr. Stevenson had approached me about the concerns still, and the possibility of an additional SRO. We had just began the process of hiring 3 patrol officers as we were having staffing shortages ourselves. So it's nothing in our budget that we could look to accommodate. But we thought we would go for the grant again. So we applied for the grant, and for the same reasons, we didn't get it. Not necessarily the need, but we didn't get it. So as we looked into it deeper, and with the Police Reform Act, legislation changed a little bit with how SRO programs work, with our agreements with the schools. And so we identified is across the country, it was quite common for school districts to partake financially in the salaries of these SRO programs. Spoke with our board at the time, and they were of the opinion that we were going to continue to fund the SRO that we currently had and had for the last 10 years solely from our budget. And that if, there was any way we could support this next officer, it would hopefully be through the assistance of the school. Mr. Stevenson had proposed some options for that to possibly happen. I believe Mr. Trammell, you've all discussed that. And so I spoke to the communities of Granville and Tallinn, both Chief Grindells and Carrington. We have a great working relationship with them. We've had for years. They both identified the need. I think like everything that we do, we want to be proactive and not reactive to it. Our student population here is, depending on who you talk to, between 13 and 1,500. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're on a campus of about 110 acres with all our facilities in one location. So last year, our resource officer, Kyle Sanders, he took reports on probably between 200 and 250 incidents, some very minor, some very serious. A lot gets referred to our detective bureau. Some of these incidents are strictly just doing traffic. Some of them are behavioral issues, but he did this while being dispatched to all 3 schools. And then also the goal is, again, our proactive approach is being visible, right? So he's out for trainings. Some of these incidents, most recently that we've all very familiar with, take a lot of investigative time. So you can only imagine the social media incidents that we've dealt with here in the last 6 months. Kyle is involved with from start to finish, regardless if the state police get involved or not. It does not go from Southwood Police to another entity and we're done with them. And that goes with our Department of Children and Families groups, our behavioral network groups. These are something that we see start to finish as we're advocating for the people that are part of these incidents. So it's becoming quite burdensome. And we believe that a second police SRO to be handling your Woodland and Powder Mill schools, whereas the other would handle strictly the high school to 7th, 8th grade, is going to be more proactive for us to accomplish the goals that we signed on to with the school in our memorandum of understanding, which also involves being involved in programs. We meet with all interested parties weekly on various topics such as school safety, our students at risk. We're actually in the middle of a program right now with Department of Homeland Security that is assessing security assessment at first entry. So it's identifying each school and identifying some of the, I guess for a better word, like soft areas, targeting areas. And it might just be your parking lots. It could be some of your ball fields. There's various things, but how we're going to respond as school officials, police, and the school resource officers are part of that. Part of that, and it's ongoing. So it's not just walking the halls and being visible. You're involved in the day-to-day operations in many ways of the school. And there's a lot of communicating going on between our groups. Always with the superintendent's office, each individual principal, and back to our detective unit, and through the chain of command up to the chief of police. So I know some of the questions have been brought up is in theory. I think they're very good points. Whereas, how do we get the other communities, Granville, Tallinn, involved in this, and can they help? Can salaries go towards an officer from another community to be part of the program? Logistically, it makes it very difficult because we work under a contract, our officers do. We're working under a memorandum of understanding, which is the guidelines come from the state, from the new legislation that dictates how we choose these officers. It's very, very specific how we choose them. They are chosen by the host community, which would be Southwood, because this is where the schools are. Ultimately, the chief of police has the final say in who that officer would be based on who fits the best. It doesn't have to be my most senior officer. It's not going to be the officer that just came out of the academy. There's a criteria that we have, our policies and procedures, predicate that you're a Southwick police officer for 3 years minimum. You have a minimum of associate's degree. And that you will work within our chain of command, whereas you're answering daily back through the chain of command. Our people are under contracts of how we work. Our policies and procedures for the department dictate how we work. So to bring an outside entity in makes that structure kind of hard. If a community could provide a full-time person 24/7 and give that dedication, I could see a time where that could maybe work. But right now, those communities I don't believe are in that position. They don't have the size of the department. They're currently trying to build their department. And we have to have that continuity Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where when we have an incident that this officer is able to communicate directly through our chain of command and through the administration of the school. So those are some of one of the hurdles that bringing in the other communities in that type of idea. I've always been a proponent of you take Granville, Tallinn. We did this for a while before COVID. It seemed to work good. COVID changed things for a little bit and we tried to resume it, but I think staffing affected it a little bit for the other communities at the time. But you have designated liaisons from Granville, Tallinn. An officer that our SRO can specifically contact and communicate at any point in time. And if they're not available, somebody else. They can still play a role in coming down and, going to classrooms where their students might be. Certainly, we already communicate with those communities on students that we have whatever reasons for, a need, I should say, back to that community. It's very important for them to communicate back to us. So at our assessment meetings, we can communicate with the school, like maybe there was an incident in Granville or Tallinn over the weekend. That's important to identify the student needs and to keep an eye out. So those things are already happening. I think we can be better at it. I think we can straight by truly identifying an officer specifically as part of these programs moving forward. So in a nutshell, I mean, I think there might be some questions, I'd rather leave it open to some questions and concerns, before I go further.
So, thank you very much, Chief. I think one item that I think we want to, I know you and I touched base on it here last week when we were speaking, but you coming tonight. There was a proposal that Granville had talked about where they had potentially an officer that was going to be going through training, that they were looking at, hey, look, I know you've got in the budget and you're proposing a full-time SRO, but would a part-time person work? I know we've already addressed that where, look, ideally it's a full-time person. But you haven't, you've recently talked to the chief up there or found out some additional information on that potential officer?
So the officer, and again, this is unique when you go back to the legislation and how it was predicated that the chief of police and the superintendent will pick the best officer for the position. I'm not saying the best officer couldn't be from Granville or Tallinn, but they will choose the officer. So that's how a successful program is gonna work. Right now, the officer that Granville was thinking about, I know they were gonna be he was gonna get certified, but the commitment as far as how much that could be was maybe a few days a week. But that officer recently took a job with Blanford, or Otis, I'm sorry, because he got a full-time job with them, because he needed the benefits and stuff, that was a personal choice. So I don't know that Granville can still even commit to that at the moment. Not to say they won't be able to someday, but that was the officer they had in mind.
And when you were talking about the liaison program, that would probably fit more in tune with if we added the second SRO and that officer was part of the Southwick Police Department. For Granville and Tallinn to have that liaison program where somebody would be identified, that certainly would require hours during the week for them to be able to do that, correct?
Absolutely, and I think because when you have with two SROs, a lot of things that we have in our agreement as far as some, participating in some classroom environments, whereas we're giving dialogue on law enforcement related stuff. It could be drunk driving, it could be bullying, it could be things that we could add to the curriculum. It's very hard to do right now based on with one officer who's bouncing school to school. Some of those programs certainly are things that this Granville and Tallinn liaison could be part of. I just, for the program to keep running the way we're running and have this communication chain that we currently have, it really needs to be somebody who can be fully embedded into the school, not even just for the communication, it's for the students. It's how they really get to know the officer. I mean, by splitting up with two, the kids in the woodland and the powder mill environments are really going to get to know their SRO much better than the one that's just navigating based on calls through the system.
And I know the other option and we certainly don't know at this point, obviously, from a procedural perspective, the budget includes that full-time SRO in there. It is going to go to the towns for their town meetings to vote up or down. If we have two out of the three towns vote that budget through, that's going to give you a green light to potentially move forward with that. We do have an option in Southwick that potentially, this second officer might be a female, correct? There are females on the force. It may or may not.
Possible, but we
We don't know who that right person is. That's obviously a decision you and the superintendent would be able to make, but that option is out there. Any other questions at this point?
So I appreciate you being here, obviously at my request. So from what I'm hearing from you is that, while the number of students in our district have not necessarily increased, the needs have. And that what we're finding, because my initial question was, what do we need more? And what we're finding is that one officer is just being pulled in multiple directions, which is preventing them from being present in the schools, participating in the classroom programming, the administrative meetings at all three schools as much as we see would be advantageous. Is that correct? And I guess, my initial question was just that, could somebody be here 2 days a week or 3 days a week and do that job? What I'm hearing from you is we need somebody who is consistently available, and no matter what day of the week it is. And I get the importance of being involved in the classrooms and in the, the assemblies and things like that. And I get the importance of, creating relationships. And so I'm not at all questioning that. I do, I know that we do have a liaison right now. And I guess what I'd like to see moving forward is if we do move forward with this second person, I really would like to see the liaison program improved upon. So that it is more than just communicating with the officers, but actually having those designated liaisons come down and be able to be in the buildings when possible.
Absolutely. We were doing that for, like I said, and for whatever reason, I think it was Colin, I think it was some staffing, why they couldn't dedicate as much as, and again, in credit to these officers, they all have other jobs. And it's rare to have one from their communities that this is all they do. So it's a huge burden. But I think it can be done with that flexibility. And it's up to the chiefs of those departments to choose who that best fit's gonna be.
Any other-
I would definitely-
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Just to clarify for everybody, so what we have currently in the budget is that second SRO. As Chief Landis indicated, the town of Southwick is proposing to continue paying for the entire cost of the first SRO, as they've done for the last 10 years. The second SRO's cost will be put into the school district's budget and broken out from the towns, or to the towns, the way that our breakdown is, where's the 82-14-4. The other option that we looked at that is not in the budget this way, we certainly could do it. We can certainly look at this, or it would be a conversation with Southwick and the school committee. If we were to separate the time on premise, or do it that way, where they send invoices to us for both officers, when we work that out, that actually becomes a higher incurred cost to Granville and Tolland than it is currently set up under the proposal that is on the table for this year. So this is the most economical way for the other two towns to participate with this and add that second officer. So where we are right now is it's up for a vote for the towns. If we have 2 of the 3 towns approve the operational budget, that'll give us a green light to move forward, starting July 1st to open up your search, chief, so that we can fill that role.
We're actually ahead of that. We're
Oh,
already taking
okay.
applications for interviews, just in hopes that it does pass, because we have to get them into training in June. So that's the next
Super.
certification. So we're already on that in hopes to town meeting as well. And,
That's great news. Anybody have any other questions for Chief Landis? Thank you very much, Chief.
thank you.
All right, next we have Mr. Pescatelli for a DEIB update.
Also just give these to you to be able to look at. Sure. In the future. I brought
Materials.
Yeah. Well. Thumb through. You'll get the context in a little bit. Thank you, everyone, this evening for having me here, to be able to present on this. Definitely something that I think everyone knows, how important it is to me, just as a person, but also as just an educator, of course, in our district. As we're all aware, this is part of our overall district and also school goal. If you can go to the slide, thank you. As a student's sense of belonging is critical to academic success, the district will foster a sense of belonging and partnership among students, staff, and families, where all members of the school community feel socially connected, supported, and respected. We presented this at the beginning of the year as part of our school strategic plan
and of course our district strategic plan. And, you know, I have a quote in there, from Dr. Adolph Brown, who presented to our entire, our entire community, as staff at our commencement, and, our why, it always comes back to, it's because of kids. That's the reason why we do what we do, right? That's our focus. So what I'm going to share this evening briefly, I know you have a stacked schedule and I appreciate you squeezing me in, of course, is that I'm going to share some work that we've done and the work that our students, our families, and our teachers have been doing at Woodland School, all right, around building this to be really successful, all right, and inclusive, creating a sense of belonging for all kids. So if any school committee members or anybody that's here that's viewing via Zoom or here tonight in person, if you've attended Woodland in the very last several years, probably in the range of 5 to 6, I would venture to say, it is the core values of what Woodland stands for. And it's all focused around, you can read those, I think they're hopefully big enough, but it stands for CARES. It's an acronym, of course, and it's we cooperate, we act responsibly, we respect all, we exhibit effort, we show self-control. This is taught in every facet of what we do at Woodland. It begins all the way down to pre-K and it goes all the way through second grade. And it looks different with each grade level as we can imagine. But I highlight this ticket because every single morning our kids are recognized publicly over the intercom, and those smiles of being able to recognize those kids every single morning. And at this point, we're at a touch over 900 recognitions of CARES, where we're representing, showing them, kids, that if you exhibit CARES, you end up getting recognized in a positive way. And it's really highlighting, right? And that's including all our children at Woodland, right? Our staff are right in that every single day, working and highlighting the positive things that happen in our classes, in and outside of class, across the entire school. So that is right in alignment with our PBIS program. In fact, that's a really major part on the slide. Thanks. So like I already highlighted, I just figured we could share a few pictures. This is right when you walk in to our foyer. We have a little kind of backdrop that, you know, when as often as we can, we get to take their picture and highlight it and push it out on socials. And also, you know, within, of course, our newsletter, and just be able to promote that, share with the kids how important it is to be able to demonstrate, you know, all the different parts of CARES and recognizing that's one of the most important parts of this, right? So again, I'll just highlight that number. I think that data is amazing. I mean, of course, we'd always like more, but it just a touch over 900 at this point of our students. We only have around on any given day around 320 that are in attendance. So this is repeated, right? It's not like a one-shot deal. They're every single day, every single month being recognized consistently by our teachers. So focusing, of course, around social emotional learning, such an important part of our really day to day. Everything that it's no secret. I was assistant principal, right, at the regional school, and I think we could say that the focus is also around social emotional learning and making sure that kids are Lucas notices, right, making sure that you're feeling fine here, you're feeling fine here, right? And then you can engage in learning. It is so important within this younger age group, that is the focus every single day. And it's not just our adjustment counselors, which I highlight, in this first bullet, where they're going in, on a consistent basis, on a schedule, where they're implementing curriculum around social emotional learning, within all of our classrooms, pre-K, all the way to 2. And that work, I just give kind of really the bullet points of what the focus areas are. And we differentiate, I just want to highlight it within pre-K first, pre-K, kindergarten, and first. We look at not utilizing that terminology of bullying. We introduce that within 2nd grade, just in terms of age appropriate, and it's differentiated, but we talk about it in terms of social problem solving, all right? Friendship building, and being able to go through and use, the lessons through that lens. And just in 1st grade or at the end, they're starting to talk about what does it mean to be an upstander, right? To stand up to somebody that may be exhibiting unkind behavior, and how to actually interject and be able to intervene as a young person. We're talking a 1st grade child to be able to learn that skill set. And they practice it. They do it with right now in the month of May. That's what they're engaging in, with our adjustment counselor. So a couple of those last 2 bullets, I've already kind of spoke through them, but just to highlight, the teachers in each grade level across the board, in connection with the adjustment counselors and the work that they're doing, not just the classroom teachers, but also our specialist teachers, are working through this focus area. That they are every single day using the same vocabulary, enhancing those lessons that these kids are taught each and every week. And it's the same language I'm using in the halls when I'm visiting classrooms. You'll see it in a second when I talk about zones of regulation, even in daily conversations I have with children, and actually in addition with families, having that conversation, that dialogue. It's building that community within Woodland. So, thanks, Steve. So these are our counselors in action. Slight edit, it should be for Mr. Tamel, the former English teacher, there should be not an apostrophe in there, but we'll ignore that, right, Mr. Tamel? But it should be just a representation. I want to highlight for you all, our 2 counselors in action, and seeing some of our kiddos, in the classrooms. So be able to highlight, their work. I just wanted to show that briefly. Thank you. So Woodland and the core 4. This is directly connected to one of them's up there, the zones of regulation, but these 4 main areas of focus of components that we use all together as really a menu of our PBIS approach, and also guiding kids around their social and emotional well-being. Marble jar, the focus, if you've heard our kids go home and talk about it, your children coming home and talking about the marble jar, filling the marble jar. They're seeing the actual physical marble jar being filled because of what they're doing correctly within class related to a particular behavior. And they're seeing it as a whole community. That's the entire, right? That's where, as a group, you're being focused on in terms of your behavior within a class as a class community. At different times, there could be different focus, right? Maybe at the beginning of the year, they're really trying to hone in as a teacher around following classroom directions and being able to settle in after recess. And they're doing that consistently, right? Using an example here, that marble jar is getting filled a lot quicker. right? And as the year progresses, there may be another kind of area that teacher needs to focus on, right? They're noticing, maybe a little bit of an uptick, in the morning where they're needing to settle in. You're focusing on that time with those kids around building those skills to be able to settle in for that morning routine, morning meeting. But that's just one of the 4 parts that we use. Zones of regulation, I'm gonna highlight in the next slide, in a second. But 10 frames, the focus around that, I talked about the group focus. 10 frames is more focused around the individual student and highlighting all of the positive behavior that's going on with a particular student and even differentiating for a particular student and their need. And that gives the ability for the teacher to then highlight within our CARES program to be able to demonstrate and share out the positive things through CARES and highlighting, the positive behavior that they're doing related to it. And the last, we all need these. Everyone in this room needs a calm down corner. All right. And it's teaching children to know it's okay to be dysregulated, to feel a level of frustration, to maybe feel upset, right? Maybe even feel in the red zone and be angry. That's okay. But it's teaching them to be able to utilize a space in the classroom and be able to go to that space and use strategies that they're taught. Okay. And when this is done at a really high level and the kids understand it, students understand how to use it, it's like clockwork. You walk in, you see them engaging in using the actual calm down corner, and they're put their little timer. The teachers do it in different ways, but some use a little egg timer, and they know after a minute, after they feel calmer, they go back to whatever the lesson is, whatever they're engaging in, and they swing back over, and they're back, they're calm, ready to go. They need more time, they take more time. They give the little cue to the teacher, they flip the egg timer again, they maybe use a different strategy, right? But when it's working at 100%, it is magic. It looks great, and it looks exactly what we would want to see with a kid. And I'll be able to highlight in the next slide in a moment how we intervene and support students that maybe need that additional intervention, right? That tier 2 and tier 3 intervention to create that level of equity for all, right? Next slide. Thanks, Steve. So I skipped the bullet around zones of reg, but the zones of regulation, as you can see, they took the characters from help me with the name of the movie.
Inside Out.
I knew that, Inside Out. It's a favorite in the Pescatelli household. And the different colors, of course, like you think blue, right? You think of kind of being down, right? A little sad, maybe sick. You can read all those words up there, right? But the green zone, we're happy, we're calm, right? Just some examples. The yellow zone, maybe we're feeling a little excited, maybe a little silly. And then of course the red zone, and we're feeling angry. We may be yelling, or we're at that verge of like wanting to yell, right? But being able to check in with children around their zones, like doing an actual zone check-in, is a practice that we do, right? And from month 1, really week 1 of learning this and seeing it in action and then practicing it on my end, right? It's become habit. And our kids, our students, are the experts in it. They will tell you what zone they're in. They can tell you this because of the amount of work that we've done and what our teachers have done, our adjustment counselors, all of our staff, because as an entire community, we utilize it. And again, when it's working, and our students are engaging in it, it really is amazing. And it definitely builds a positive community. Thanks, Steve. So something that I've really enjoyed doing, and I've it's probably selfish on my end with the teachers doing this, but of course, that feeling is completely beyond what these kids get out of it and our families get out of it, and that's the good news phone call. And I wouldn't, this is not an original Pescatelli. This is like me going to a conference and stealing an idea, and harvesting it and making it my own, and our own at Woodland School. I can just share these 4 conversations that I had with their families and the kids talking to their parents and having that unique opportunity. I always say it's a really cool opportunity. You get to talk to your parents or your guardians during the school day. Who gets to do that? No one, right? So they also get to pick a book from the book box, and they light up. They love it. They enjoy it. They get to highlight and share out what the positive thing is that they're being recognized for. And what better type of activity that we can engage in to be able to highlight inclusivity and highlight positive, acts and acts of kindness in a good news phone call. So I just wanted to be able to share a couple pictures of our kids in a slide. This is just kind of a week-long activity that we engaged in back in February. It kind of blew up into something even bigger than I had initially anticipated what it was going to be. But the overall, it was like a real full-out blitz of like recognizing children. And actually, in addition, it came to be recognizing staff through the entire week of the week of kindness, right? And we had the Woodland Wall of Kindness, and being able to post the hearts. Of course, it was right around Valentine's Day, so it just made sense to utilize hearts around it, but they got to write their name and put it up on the wall, and of course, everyone got a picture, but there'd be over hundreds of pictures that would have been up there, so I can't include them all, or couldn't figure out a way to pile it all up there. So at any rate, that was really just a positive activity that, the feedback from the kids and the staff and families, will continue to be doing that. Building that positive sense of that kindness from each kid and having them feel it and actually be able to talk about it is across the board positive. All right, so I just want to highlight the additional interventions and supports. As I said, sometimes the work that we do within the tier 1 or in the classroom is just not enough. And to be able to create that level of equity for all and be able to give what a student needs may end up being that level 2 or potentially even level 3 intervention. And some of our level 2 intervention that specific around behavioral or social emotional is working with our kids with small group. And that's specifically with our adjustment counselors. I haven't highlighted this part this evening at this point, but this is a perfect opportunity to do it. In addition, when we're talking about equity across our academics, looking at students that are in need. And we actually just presented this. Ms. Karopkov was there for ILT this evening, and just before tonight's school committee meeting, and we were talking about our intervention and what we've been doing with intervention. And I want to highlight that because it's ending up servicing and supporting those students that are identified at a very young age, to be able to get them the supports they need and get them back in the tier 1 classroom in full capacity. And our interventionists do a wonderful job each and every day. They're collaborating with our across the board, all of our staff, but they're providing that academic intervention to create that sense of equity for all students. Some of the additional tier 3 on my end, along with working with our counselors, it gets to this level, are the consequences that are, you know, in accordance with our handbook, our policies, that we have in place, education that can be provided, you know, the restorative practice that we engage in, when appropriate, behavior plans, and that's all work that we do as a team. It's not, you know, not just one person, but we work as a team. And that's really that top tier, that tier 3, that really intensive work that we're doing as an entire community of staff. Next slide. So bringing it forward all the way around, focusing with our staff, the work that we've done is right within our strategic plan. We said we were going to do it. We did do it. And we engaged in this work, and we're going to continue this work. I'll highlight that in the next slide. But the work that, as a district, we've been fortunate enough to be able to engage in around diversity, equity, inclusion, and also being able to partner with ADL in the last few years. They were able to work with our staff in professional learning sessions through this entire school year, and will continue that work, really helping the teachers learn what, and this is the connection, the book that you were just looking at, that framework of the anti-bias anti-bias building blocks. It's a K-2 curriculum, and really the vision is to merge. I'm talking about in terms of merging our SEL curriculum and that curriculum into one, right? A lot of the lessons that are within there is already lessons that we're teaching, but to be able to bring the lens of what ADL has to offer and be able to utilize that with all of our staff. So we're providing that training this year, and that's the plan anyway, for the upcoming school year. But just to highlight, just to be able to share out, I mean, there's some really, you know, positive work that we were able to do this year at the staff level. So they're comfortable enough to be able to engage this upcoming year, to be able to work directly with our children, you know, utilizing this lens. And that goes to this last bullet, or these last 2 bullets, my last slide. We will continue to focus in really growing into a full implementation. There's always room to grow, always room to improve. And so the implementation report for implementation of our SEL units. We have a SEL council that's all together working with Dr. Sullivan. And you know, she's chairing that. And hopefully for the start of next year, we'll have a really good handle on, you know, what curriculum, or at least we'll have a roadmap of where we're going as an entire district around SEL in terms of a curriculum that will guide us and we'll be able to use. Next part of the bullet. There you go. For whatever reason, it went that way. All right. And the last bullet is we will continue to work with ADL, as I've said, and I'm looking forward to that work. And I know all the staff at Woodland are as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to concluding this year, but looking forward to planning for next year as well. All right. Any questions?
Like that, the ADL handbook that you passed around, are people currently using that, or are those resources that you're going to implement in the future?
It's a good question, especially no. And the reason why is because very much like connections, right? There is, if you recall that the kind of that thick binder that,
Oh, it's
yeah, it's in your house. Well, that's right. They're in connections. So that in itself needs training, right? For not just, in this case, it's just our staff that would be trained, right? For Aaron, it was, of course, being trained with that particular 3-day training. But for us as a staff, we would need them trained in how to implement it.
And are there plans in place for everybody to receive that training? So the entire staff, or just select?
No, it's the entire staff. Entire staff with the focus that our adjustment counselors, they facilitate all of the SEL lessons. They push in to all the classrooms, as you're well aware.
And how
But
frequently do the adjustment counselors
We-
teach lessons in?
weekly,
Weekly.
they go.
lunch bunch.
Yes, they do.
Student. All right, so I was the only member who had kids in Woodland. And then as you said, like, oh, if you've had a kid in Woodland, like the past 5 or 6 years, sitting here, think about it, I've had a kid in there since 2017.
Yeah.
And I have like 4 more years to go. My youngest is in high school. And will be next year. Like, I know it's sort of like it's cute and whatever, but honestly, as like someone who's had a kid in this school for many, many years, like the marble jar, they have one in every classroom, and also like art and music and all those, and they come home so flippin' excited when that marble jar has been filled and they get to do something like pajama day, or they have a camping day, or whatever, they gotta bring a stuffy to school, like they live for that. They also live for bringing CARES home and being able to show like, Mom, look, I got a CARES ticket today, or like, I filled my 10th frame and I got something from the teacher today, like, it really, or also I have used zones of regulation for my child who is very, he wears his emotions on his sleeve and they're quite large and in charge, like I've had the adjustment counselors help me with as far as terminology and how to help him at home, like all, like,
They're,
they
they're amazing.
love it.
One
Thank
last
you.
question related to that. So you said several times when it's working, it's magic,
Yeah.
right? So obviously that means sometimes it doesn't work. So what are your greatest barriers to success? And like what, to make it work more frequently, what are your challenges? What do you need?
Sure, it's a fair question. It ends up having to do with, what I was highlighting in that one of the last slides. Unfortunately, we all notice with children that, come in at all different levels in terms of that, social, emotional, meter, if you will, right? And it's a continuum. And, if you have a student that really is struggling social, emotionally, you can continue to try to implement that for entire classroom, right? But there may be one student that needs some extra TLC and some additional support. So, that's where our adjustment counselors, our special education teachers, our additional support staff, myself, right? Really come into play to be able to support, those particular situations. So not so much like what I need, right, or what we need. It's just that understanding that every single child has different needs, which I know we all get. But just to recognize that.
Well, I love that Ryan's saying that she's using that terminology at home.
Yeah.
Do you guys, and working with the adjustment counselor personally, do you guys do, like, meetings for parents led by the adjustment counselors on how you can, implement what we're doing in the classroom as well?
Yeah. I laugh because this is something literally we've talked about going into next year.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's the next phase.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've had a hard time
Good
for
question,
nights
discussion.
today. So my teacher actually gave me every day, he came home with a sheet of paper and he's like from unpack, pack up, and what zone he was in throughout the day. To kind of figure out like, what is our problem area? He said like, May becomes a time of like, oh, we're getting a little silly in the morning because it's towards the end of the school year or whatever. And then, if he was reading all day for all week, then he would get something to like try to help regulate ourselves a little better.
Well, I think that's awesome. And the more that we can do to engage parents and community, the better. So thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Rachel Shorter. You're up.
Anybody want to see next? So Lucas took a couple of things I was gonna highlight, but I would like to just add a little bit to what he shared about a couple of things at the regional school. And first and foremost, Magnolia being selected as the student of the year by the Elks Lodge. And she was recognized last evening at a dinner that they had. But to give a little bit, I received a letter letting me know that this was gonna, happen. And it's the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks has designated May 1st through 7th as Elks National Youth Week. It's a time for us to focus on the importance of youth in our community as a future nation. And as such, they sought multiple recognitions from each of the 7 high schools in our jurisdiction as candidates worthy to be recognized with our committee, and made a final determination of a single student for each school. And so Magnolia was selected, was nominated and selected from our school. So since she is a member of the committee, I thought it would be good to share that additional information.
And I think it's also, they don't fill out an application for this award or anything.
No,
They-
someone has
they are
to,
picked.
they're picked, yeah, some, based on the things that they're doing in the community, the school community. The second thing I wanted to highlight is, next week we are recognizing mental health. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, but next week we're recognizing it at the regional school specifically for a week, kicking it off on Monday with Mental Health Awareness Day. Mrs. Dion, one of our the school adjustment counselors, has really put in a lot of energy in working with connection students and other students to bring the program that we're going to have. And it's going to be outside agencies coming in and providing resources and information for students. And I think it's up to 10 outside agencies now that will be coming in. And not just what you might think. I wanted to just name a few: Fresh Fitness Training Center, Advanced Psychotherapy, BHN, who many people may be familiar with, Serendipity, a yoga studio might be coming, and STGRSD Food Service is going to come with some nutritional information. So targeting all aspects of wellness that we know are integrated with mental wellness as well. So I wanted to highlight that and piggyback a little bit on what Lucas had to share. So I have a few items also. We earlier this year, back in February, the MIAA, which is the Athletic Association in Massachusetts, sent out an invitation to school principals and other school leaders that they were had received some financial support from the Attorney General's office to bring a training to regional schools or schools in the region, programs relative to addressing hate in sports. And just to kind of highlight, we know being at all levels of sports, from youth sports all the way to professional sports, what can happen in the crowd, what can happen among players, that is less than positive or not what is the point of why we're doing athletics to begin with. So they ran the program a year ago, and based on the success of it, the Attorney General's office partnered with the Association of Superintendents, the Athletic Association, and School Administrator Association, and DESE to offer these trainings that were provided by Northeastern's Center for the Study of Sports in Schools or in Society. So in March, Superintendent Willard, myself, and our athletic director, Marion George, attended the 2-day training at UMass Amherst. And they talk about, or they do the training addressing these issues through the lens of sports. As a result of that, we entered into conversations with the presenters, and they are able to tailor the presentation and tailor the work for what your school might need or want. So we've been having that conversation and working in partnership with the individuals from Northeastern, as well as the Attorney General's office, who gave us a scholarship to be able to bring this training in some form to the regional school. So what that's going to look like is we have arranged for school assemblies on June 11th, where the trainers will come and do an overall awareness and interactive assembly with students, primarily addressing leadership, kindness, and the power of the bystander. And I will put out in my school message to families this week a little kind of summary of what to expect, but the center will provide a series of student assemblies this year that will empower participants to recognize leadership abilities, understand the power of bystanders, and inspire empathy. These assemblies are designed to be highly interactive and will include customized activities that provide a safe space to raise awareness, challenge thinking, and inspire collaborative thought leadership. So in talking about the different grade levels or the needs of different class groups, the assembly programs will be tailored a little bit. That's what the different kind of activities or conversations that will happen. They're 1-hour assemblies. And from there, we will look to continue into next year with smaller group training. So school-wide, there will be a general awareness of what this is about, and students who are very, very interested in continuing will be invited to continue, but also all of our captains for sports will be required to participate in this in the fall. A 2-day training that will be more specific so that they can be leaders who address issues of hate, unkindness, bias, all of those things in athletics. So it's starting with a broader scope. It will be more specific to athletics when it gets in the fall and or other clubs and activities. So it won't be just captains. It would include other leaders like the president of the student council and things like that. Does anyone have any questions about the program or what we're bringing?
Is that funded by grant money?
Yes, from the Attorney General's office.
If successful, are they grants that we can apply for again as these kids graduate and we have new crops coming in?
I believe at this point in time, each school academic year, there's new grants and they're very specific about how you can use them. But the funding will continue. My understanding too is that there's also a train the trainer program. So we can have this organization train adults in our district to be able to continue to deliver it so that you could sustain it over time. I'm not positive about this, but the collaborative might be working on that so that they have the trainers, if they train the trainers at the collaborative, then the member schools could all benefit from bringing that training to their schools. So we may or may not do it directly here, but we would have access to that in the future. The other piece is going forward, which I haven't talked extensively about this, but once we do the training with our student leaders, the next phase would be what we can bring to the community relative to this. So I would anticipate that mid to late next year, that conversation will be happening as we do each piece of this. But Superintendent Willard and I and the athletic director found it very informative. It was a very positive experience, to be quite honest. And so we're excited to be able to bring it. And we did sometimes you go to a thing and you get a trainer or you get a presenter and it's so wonderful and you say, this is great. And then when you partner with the group, they send somebody different and it doesn't always go as well. So we have secured at least one of the 2 trainers who we experienced who will be the person coming to Southwick on June 11th.
We had another program a couple weeks ago after our last school committee meeting that the district attorney put on about the social media, stuff like that.
Oh, yes, the youth advisory board came and presented about social media, the risks and the dangers of that as well.
So I was unfortunately out of the country. I'm interested, how was the attendance?
It wasn't overwhelming, but there were enough people there. The people who were there were found it very informative and very beneficial. We also, from that, have myriad resources, and so in the assistant principal's offices and the guidance office as well, resources for family, and it's a QR code, so you can access it really readily. So if anyone is interested in that information, we have it accessible.
Could you put that on the website?
I believe that we either did or we're going to as
Yeah,
well.
it was really, as someone like my kids don't have cell phones, but the things you can do to help keep your kids safe through social media and how much you can restrict on it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and there was a student panel, our students who are members of the Youth Advisory Board, that will be this Friday at their conference, presenting their projects. but I think that was an interesting thing to hear from, teenagers to parents about, their thoughts on it, and even some of them saying, yeah, as hard as it might be, I wish I didn't have a cell phone until I was this old. Like being able to reflect and saying that seventh and eighth grade was a tough time to have a cell phone or not have one if everybody else has one. So, that was interesting as well.
And the cards that Lucas was talking about, that Magnolia put up in the school, those are from the advisory board.
Yes, as well, the, sexual or the, violence.
Yeah.
We also had 2 select board members there who took information back and I believe brought it back to your town halls. So that if people go to the town hall, they have that same information there.
It's actually gonna be out in the section pages.
Right.
I think the kids did a fabulous job. It's definitely a presentation that's worth doing repeatedly over and over and over again. Information was great. The parents that attended really wanted to engage at the end and ask questions. They had great questions. And I think they were helping each other and working with the students to kind of process. I think while, I'd like to see more attendance in the future. I think it's one of those things where if you continue to keep offering it, I think attendance will grow by word of mouth that, hey, this was actually really kind of good.
So we have a myriad of clubs for the high school students. Is this something that we could consider having a after-school or evening club for the parents about something like this? Where, I mean, if people are engaged and they learn about that, they wanna, and we didn't have a ton of people there.
That's what was the trouble.
No, I know, but I'm just,
Getting
like,
people
if you had it where it was set up, where it was recurrent.
I see what you mean. We have at the regional school had conversations over the years, and particularly in our school counseling department, they have attempted to do these sort of resource-based or host these resource-based events for families. They've largely been not well attended, but going forward, as we talk about like bridging the gap with the community, especially at the regional school level, I think we can do better about that, or look at what are the barriers and how we can improve that. So as we move through next year and we're looking at that second part of the year, talking about community pieces relative to the Addressing Hate program, I think all of these things will be part of that. Even some logistical things. I know Mr. Grant has held some sessions about plus portals for middle school families. So getting a routine of that or getting some established, I do think would be beneficial.
I'm just thinking, the predominant issues under social media nowadays, I don't disagree that we may not have had the best attendance for some of these other things for parents, but it's certainly a hot topic. I mean, it's not gonna go away. And if there is some interest there, we may find that this is one of the ones that they do come and start throwing.
But yeah, it would be kind of neat to tie that into like a seminars thing where like we rotated through different topics.
Like a series of,
Yeah,
family support.
Right.
And to your point about working with the adjustment counselors and getting that support when your child has a particular struggle, that's something that's really important as well. Also, so that families don't feel alone. Like, is my child the only child who's doing this? Or am I the only parent who struggles with this thing? And the truth is, almost no one is. And so I think we can offer that, and I think that is the direction that we intend to go. So the next thing I would like to talk about, and this is the bigger thing, and I will do my best to be as brief as possible, but to give you this important information. So the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, the Commission on Public Schools, is our accreditation body. So the regional school is an accredited high school. The last time we were accredited, we were just a high school. Now we're a 7 through 12. So now it will be 7 through 12. Well, that will be reviewed, but we are up for our decennial visit and accreditation process. We are part of a 2027 cohort, which means that we begin the work on July 1st of this year. And this is significant because the 2-year process is labor intensive, meaning that it involves what they used to call a self-study. They now call it a self-reflection, where groups of people in our school and in our school community each take one of the standards that, that NEASC, holds for accreditation. And you measure or reflect on how your school is doing against that standard. And you develop a report of how your school is doing. And then for everything that you say is true or not true in that report, you have to produce the evidence. And so that there's a lot of aspects, and it's not limited to the regional school, but all the resources that the regional school utilizes, including buildings and grounds, community resources. So the collection of evidence isn't just curriculum and classrooms, it's expansive. So I have been a part in different capacities through my career, part of NEASC processes. As a first-year teacher, I walked in and I was an observer of it. And 10 years later, I was part of a process as a report writer. And then right before I came to Southwick, I was working as an administrator, helping to organize the process. And now here I am going to be leading a process. Depending how your career goes, you may only ever do one or none, depending where you are in school. So it's interesting that this will be my fourth go of this, but in a different capacity. NEASC has changed their process. So it used to be you spent 2 years preparing, a visiting team would come to your school and they would investigate everything over the course of 3 days. And then they would give you a summative report, which would say where, you know, if you were accredited, partially accredited, some continuum of accreditation, and then they would give you a series of recommendations. And every 2 to 5 years for the next 10, you need to make progress and give a report of how you're making progress toward those. At this point, they have broken down the process to do a visit after year 1. So we are looking at a visit by a team of people, of educators from around New England to come to the regional school either next spring or the following fall, depending what cycle you end on. And they will do a collaborative conference visit. So by that time, instead of taking 2 years to do a self-study, we're going to need to do it in 1 year. It's more now of a growth journey as opposed to a summative, you did well or you didn't do well. So after that collaborative conference, we will get feedback and then we will begin developing an improvement plan for the regional school. Or actually it's a growth plan, not an improvement plan, it's a growth plan. And we will need to implement it in year 2 or begin implementation. At the close of year 2 will be our decennial visit, meaning every 10 years you get the visit. And that will be a summative evaluation. We expect that we will have initial accreditation, and that will be contingent upon whatever recommendations and how we're keeping up with those over the 10 years that follow. So what it really does is it sets the direction for your next 10 years as a school. And I think we are really excited about where we are now compared to where we were 10 years ago. And one of those things, former principal Mr. Tmellan and myself talked about after the last visit was the curriculums we wanted in place by the time we came to the next visit. And we're looking at that. We're looking at, you know, new science curriculum, English curriculum, social emotional learning curriculum. These things will be in place by the time of the visit. So we've met our goal as far as that goes. So that's exciting news. So the other piece that we will need to be working on next school year to be ready for this is developing what's called the vision of the graduate, or it's a profile of a graduate. And that's essentially when someone graduates from Southwick Regional School, what is that student equipped with? What is that person equipped with? And what are all the things they need to leave here? And from that, everything you do should always come back to that. And so we at this time don't have that in this district. And so we will need to develop that at the same time that we're working on our self-reflection next year. The other things to be aware of at this time is stakeholder involvement is part of this process. So there will be surveys that would go to the community at various points, go to the school committee, go to other members of the district, the other schools and things like that, based on the standards or the indicators for accreditation as we move forward. So, does anyone have any questions about that or about the process? Okay. As we move through the 2 years, I'll give you updates about where we are in the work. This summer, the plan is to map out how we're going to tackle the work. But the focus of our professional time next school year will be doing the self-reflection.
So you said they're coming either next spring or the following fall. So you may or may not have a year to get ready, is that?
So
Incorrect.
you'll either, we fill out, we're in the, so I just went to the seminar a week and a half ago where they laid out what we need to do. So now actually just this afternoon, I received the application for accreditation. Once I fill that out, they will come back and say, we're coming to your school next May, or we're coming, I think, October.
Okay,
So it's
a
the
year from
same,
now.
it's a year from now, unless we get a fall visit, we would get a little buffer of time. And then your second visit's a year from there. So you're either in a spring cycle or you're in a fall cycle. Last time we were in a spring cycle, I don't know if that affects what we do, what we get this time or not, I'll find out. So, any other questions? Oh, okay, so the last piece I wanna put forward is a year ago, Mr. Trammell and I came to, a little over a year ago, Mr. Trammell and I came to the committee and we looked for your support and endorsement about investigating a new schedule for the regional school. And we were very convincing about why that was so important. And we still believe that it is. However, looking at the work that's in front of us relative to NEASC, it would be unreasonable to be able to focus well on that work and be looking at attempting to roll out a new schedule, particularly with when you change a schedule after so many years, you do need to offer professional development for teachers to adjust and for the school culture to adjust around the change based on what we might be looking at. So we are looking to postpone that conversation until we go through our accreditation process. And the other reason, it's not just that the focus would be we would be divided in our focus. It's also because the NEASC visiting team is going to make recommendations about where they see that our needs are to meet the standards. And so we are very likely to get some really great feedback about what direction we want to go with the schedule or what our needs are that we should consider as we discuss building a new schedule. Therefore, it wouldn't make sense to rush and do this at the same time, only to get recommendations relative to things maybe we didn't consider or that weren't in alignment with the new accreditation standards, because their new process they've also changed their standards a little bit. So we would like to go through this process before we continue that conversation.
You don't change it and then go, you really should go back to your old schedule.
Well, that's the other thing. They could say, hey, this is a great schedule, keep doing it. But you need to figure out how to include certain other things. So I'm looking for support on that, or I see everyone nodding, so it feels like everyone understands why that's the right move to make at this time. No.
No, I mean, I absolutely supported and had for years and years and years looking at changing it. I understand the complexity. It did feel like we were trying to rush it a bit to be in line with the teacher's contract. We never want to, I mean, you gotta go slow to go fast, is that right? You never want to rush something, but as you were talking about all the NEASC and, we've been listening to these amazing presentations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, like those things need to be on the list. So while I do think we need to revisit this, I totally see the need to direct our focus elsewhere.
I agree. And, a year and a half ago, our school was in a very different place. We've had enormous change at the leadership level, and that impacts everything else. So that's another piece, like taking our time and doing it well, as opposed to rushing and not doing it well. And we've learned that the hard way at times. And so that expression, go slow to go fast, I think is important. All right, thank you all so much.
You.
One more addition to the educational side that we forgot to add. Last month, Mr. Jasek was here and talked to us about yonder pouches. And we asked him to come back with some data and a recommendation for next year. So I did get a chance to touch base with him this afternoon, and he is here to give us their updated information.
All right, so this one's interactive. We're gonna have some audience participation here. So you guys got a folder. It has all the information about Yonder that I have updated for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'm gonna provide a recommendation from the school. All right. So the very top paper in your folder is the policy that you guys are all super familiar with. That's the current policy that we have for cell phone use. The next paper in the folder is a proposed cell phone policy. So you guys know that adjustments to the handbook are coming. So this is a preview. So I talked to Mr. Root today, and he said it was cool to share this with you guys. So this is an example of if, based on our recommendation, what the, cell phone policy might look like. So that's something for you guys to look at. So if you turn to the third page. So I talked to Yonder, and a lot of what I was experiencing for the last month or 2 months while I was trying to communicate with them became very, very clear because they were going through a turnaround themselves. So they had a change in decision makers at the business level. So they were having some business issues. They were very candid about it, actually. They were very honest about some of the issues that they were having. I talked to the manager today, so I wasn't talking to I was talking to a sales rep, and I was talking to a manager today, and they want to waive, we talked about last time that we rented, that we leased those pouches, they're gonna waive that lease fee. So we do not have to pay for the pouches that we already have. We paid for them once, they're not gonna charge us again. That's my understanding, and I think that's reflected in this particular, one of the cost estimates that they gave me. So they also said because we are already customers, the price for us per pouch is less. So I think I told you last time, talking to the sales rep, a month ago or so, that it was $30 a pouch. It's $25.50 a pouch now, which over time, or after you're purchasing a lot of those, that $5 does add up. $4.50. So the school, from our standpoint, the administration, we met, and what we would like to propose for this coming school year in regards to cell phone policy is to keep the grades 7 and 8 as the Yonder users. So grade 8 will be able to reuse the ones that they had from 7th grade, and we would need to purchase another 100 or so. It's give or take. I got an estimate for 100 pouches because there's roughly 100 students, give or take. So we also have a couple of extras, but this is the cost estimate. So it'd be $2,626.50 to get pouches for incoming 7th grade students and allow us to have pouches for 7th and 8th grade. Yes.
So what would happen to the pouches that the 8th grade students?
Well,
currently have?
we would be able to go through those. A lot of those will probably have some miles on them. So what Yonder recommended was to go through and keep any of them. None of them are going to be brand new, but keep some of the ones that are in working order and use those as extras so that if a student does break one and we need to replace it, then we provide a replacement with potentially a used one.
So I would certainly expect Yonder to say that, because that's gonna get them 100 new purchase houses that
Sure.
we're gonna get.
Yes.
So we've got, how many 7th graders going in 8th grade next year?
Roughly 100.
Okay, so how many of their pouches are not gonna be able to be reused in the following year, and who's responsible to pay for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. That would be us.
Okay, So have we figured out how many of those would have, they're all gonna have the same amount of miles?
Right,
The ones that the seventh graders have and the eighth graders have the same miles because they had them this year.
right.
So I think what we want to, first, before we go and purchase 100,
See what we have for
let's
working
find
order.
out how many of the eighth grade ones are usable.
Sure,
You would think that you might end up having the same number of seventh grade ones that are gonna need to be replaced. We still may need 100,
right.
but before we go and purchase 100, let's make sure that we can reuse as many as the eighth grade ones as we've got. I'd like to see what that number is.
Sure.
Before we go and do that.
Sure, so what we can do is we can collect all of them, test them,
Yes.
see what kind of shape that they're in, and then get an exact number for you.
No, I think that
Yeah.
just makes sense. Because
I don't
you can
disagree.
find that there may be 70 of them.
Yeah,
There's no sense in buying 100 if we've already got 70 that are good. We can keep 20 for extras.
sure,
Maybe we only need to buy 50.
fair enough.
What is the expected lifetime of the pouch?
So that's gonna be the next question.
I think it's such a wide range. I guess it depends on, if a student is taking the yonder pouch and, running it over with their dirt bike versus,
Yeah.
so I've seen some of them last, a long time and look brand new. So some of the students, when they turn them in at the end of the year, they're gonna look brand new. Some of them are gonna be in the middle and some of them are gonna look like they got run over with a dirt bike.
So do the kids take them home with them?
Yes, students are responsible for yonder pouches, yes.
So is there anything in our handbook or school policies about expected care? And anything to encourage these kids to take good care of it? Because, I mean, listen, I say this with love because I've spent my whole 24 years with seventh graders, but they are absolute animals.
Sure,
And I know this via the Chromebooks that we distribute in my district, and they're just, they drop them, they throw them. I mean, they just treat them like dirt because there's no expectation on them from the district that they are being held responsible.
so a document in addition, and it's not in this folder, but a document was handed out in addition to this. It actually shows diagrams on the actual pouch and everything. And it outlines all those expectations, including replacement costs.
Yeah, I'd like us to be, and I know that this is a hard line, you have to walk that equity line, but I'd like us to be holding these kids accountable for some degree of maintenance and proper care. Because, the idea of having to purchase 100 every year, when you really shouldn't, and I mean, they really just are very destructive towards their own personal property. Well, exactly, like if we can somehow hold them accountable so that, they or their parents, have a vested reason to take
Sure,
care of it.
Of course,
Well, if they're damaged, they're obligated to pay for.
they are,
that
and
way.
that's already in writing, that's already been
So if they're
sent out
running
to
them over
schools.
with a dirt bike and they're turning them in at the end of the year. And it
Yes.
looks like they've had misuse.
It's just like,
We're gonna be charging them for a
yes.
replacement for them.
that's correct.
Okay, so that will certainly help with, we certainly may not need to buy 100. If some of them are abused,
Of course,
then they'll be replaced. Yeah, so I guess that's the first step. I know you're jumping I don't wanna jump the gun. You got one more page to do.
No.
yeah, so I also asked for an estimate for 400, what this would look like if we did 9 through 12. Cause I know we had discussions about that. That's not what the school's requesting at this time, but you guys, this is just something that will paint the picture for the cost. I know that last time we had spoken, especially with the having to repurchase the other ones, that there was a different number. It was at a $30 per pouch cost, not a $25.50 cost. So this is the official quote for what 400 pouches might look like for the high school. If you guys were interested in looking at that.
But again, that would not be a lease. This would not be.
They're not doing leases anymore, so they were losing too much money. Admittedly, the manager said that he was losing too much money because what schools were doing is they were kind of sending couches back in within a certain time period and being like, hey, we need a bunch of new ones. And they were having to give brand new products away essentially, and so they changed their business model extremely fast.
And just to reiterate, when students come out of 8th grade and go into 9th, they're going to be using the slots on the walls.
So
Correct.
that would be the
Did we
other
gain
part of
any-
the policy.
Did we gain any ground with the teachers and toward trying to like uniform that policy or that end of it?
I think that would be a fresh start, September first, so that would be a new expectation. So the other part of the policy, so 7th and 8th grade would be required to use the yonder pouches. The high school, we would use the wall slots, where students would be expected to place their phones upon entry into the classroom.
So,
And important piece of that, not take it with them when they
Go to
leave
the
to
bath-
go to the
Correct.
bathroom and the nurse and get a drink and
Yes.
all that.
Yes,
so there's obviously gonna be two things that make or break that option to work. We're gonna need the students to comply.
Which they will if we hold yonder pouches over their head.
Well, right, well, you hope so. But the bigger thing is we're gonna need to make sure that the teachers are gonna enforce this new policy, because if they're not gonna do it, then this is gonna fail quite quickly. So I know we've got a following page. If we were to go, whether it's next year, the year after, I mean, I'm certainly open to having the high schoolers have an opportunity to prove that they can be responsible. But it's, like I said, it's gonna require the students and the teachers to hold up their end of the bargain in order for this to be successful. If either one of those fail, I think we've got to revert to option 2. And look at the yonder pouches for everybody, because I think the negative implications, and we've certainly seen this of social media, up at these schools, is if it costs us $20-some thousand to do this right, it's certainly worth every dime of it in order to allow the teachers an opportunity to teach these kids without distractions, to allow the kids to not be distracted, for them to be able to learn, and for them to have this social media challenge out of their face for the time that they're in the school. But there's this last page with, if we did go that option, there's other resources that we would have to imply, right?
yes, and the reason for that is the rollout of yonder this time, I would say, was lukewarm. So we think that we can do some things that would make it far more effective coming up in this school year. And we don't want to ask, to spend, money and effort and time on something that we felt like we haven't mastered for 2 grades, and then expand that quickly and try to do all 6 grades at once when we're not 100% certain that we, have effectively implemented it to this time in the first year. So giving us another year with 7th and 8th grade, would make this more beneficial. One of the things that, so where I'm coming from, so in Chicopee, so Chicopee Comp has, used yonder, and, obviously I called over there and I asked some questions about how they do things. So in the morning and the afternoon, they have stipend positions available for staff members to help check yonder pouches. So it's more manpower essentially. And administration is involved in that, but they also use staff members to be able to check students in. So one thing that we're realizing is that administration alone at the regional school is not enough to check yonder pouches when they come in the morning. So basically, Chicopee Comp uses one main entrance. And they have 6 administrators to use. So 1 door, 6 administrators, and 2 to 4 staff members in any given morning. So they have a massive amount of manpower in the morning when students enter the building to ensure that students are complying with the yonder pouches. And it's a far more efficient, so even though we're a smaller school, we have 2 entrances in the morning. So you're taking half the number of administrators and you're spreading them out to 2 locations. And some people help volunteer, and try to help out, but it hasn't quite been as effective as we want to in the morning. So in order to do that, one thing we could do, but it's another, like you said, it's another cost. What they do is they take their stipend amount for, like, say a teacher covers a class, and they cut that in half. and they pay one teacher. Pay a few teachers, for them, it's 17, I think they have the same stipend. So it's $35 for a class coverage. They pay each teacher $17.50 a day to do the morning and the afternoon. And so they pay that as a stipend position. Now, because of our schedule, it might not be so easy to do that for us, so we might have to pay different teachers, so that breaks down to $875. Like, say, one teacher does it in the morning, it would be $875 for them. Another teacher does it in the afternoon, it'd be $875 for them. It'd be an extra, 15 minutes on their day. That's how they do it. So that's something, trying to get other staff members involved, to help with this process. To really, it would be necessary. I mean, even at the 7th and 8th, if we keep it that way, because the entrances are the same, like everything's still the same. That's something that, would help us, potentially make this more effective with fidelity.
So we're gonna have to, and again, it's not in our action items tonight, but since this is sort of a budgetary thing, we are gonna need to take a vote on this tonight to sort of give these guys a green light to come forward for the year. We can certainly discuss this at that time from a, what do we want to do? I'd like the giving them, the kids, an opportunity to prove that they can do it. But I did some quick math here on what Mr. Jason proposed here, with the stipend addition of $12,600. And the cost to buy the honor pouches of $11,781, we're looking at a total of $24,000. So, no, that's for buying the honor pouches for the
Well,
additional
no,
400.
the 12,600, that's for one.
No, that's with four staff
That
members
was the cost.
for 180 days.
Yeah, so that would be the cost. So it would cost us $25,000 to do this and expand this to the entire high school. Mr. Trammell, just for a quick, we have some staffing adjustments that are gonna benefit us to the good from a financial perspective. If they needed to go to this because this other option didn't pass, we'd have the finances to do this, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the staffing hasn't been secured yet.
Right.
But there is the potential for some savings in staffing. For the fact that
So if we were to approve the request as is proposed by Mr. Jason now, we buy the whatever number to make sure we've got pouches through the 7th and 8th grade.
Which we have time to figure out.
Right, that would be a minor cost. I don't think we're worried about that. We try the put the pouches in the shoe holes at the high school. What I'd like for us to consider is approving an option for the high school that if that plan goes south, if the teachers aren't on board, if the students aren't on board, and they get to November, December, and this is falling apart, or we want to wait on that?
Yeah.
We can do it at that point. Okay.
And I don't think that's giving it enough time. I think you need at least a full year. I'm not ready to jump on Yonder Pouches for the whole school yet for several different reasons. Number one, the company is shifting. Their management is shifting. So, before we're jumping in a whole hog on something that I have heard other people just claim as a gimmick, I think we need to give it more time. I think we need to gather more data. Number two, for 7th and 8th grade, we've heard that it hasn't fully been implemented, as best we can. And that we need another year or two to improve upon how we're doing that. And if that means adding check-in people, AM and PM, to make that happen, I fully support that. But I feel like we shouldn't jump 6 grades unless we can get 2 grades down really, really well. And I definitely prioritize grades 7 and 8. And, I'm hearing anecdotally through the students that, kids just aren't using it. Well, if they're not using it, why are they not using it? I have a feeling it has to do with those morning check-in, check-outs. Number two, I absolutely approve the change of the language, so that we're using those wall pouches. I know from personal experience that it takes more than just a couple of months to make sure that all students and all staff, are on board. And, you know, I've seen, varying levels of consistency with that in my career. But I do know that, you know, with consistency, that does work. And I definitely want to give them at least a year, to try that out. So I would certainly, be in favor of what you have proposed, certainly be in favor of adding more staff, you know, mornings and afternoons. But I would not be in favor of, going whole hog in right now.
Well, excuse me, at $17 for the stipend, for 15 minutes in the morning or for the 15 minutes in the afternoon. One person would be $3,060. That's. I don't know how many you're asking, if you're asking for 1 or 2 at each store, but when you say you're approving funding for that, that's what you're approving is about $3,050 for.
So maybe what we do, if we're just gonna, if, you know, if anybody has any major issues with.
I got a couple of issues.
Sure.
I appreciate the information you bring. But I don't feel comfortable jumping into this. I really don't.
That was gonna be, I was gonna ask them to come back.
I've heard things from students also, and I don't know if we want to discuss it, you know, right now here tonight, but I'd like to talk to you and talk to some of the other administrations, find out exactly how this works, and if some of the things the students are telling me are true. So I'm in no rush to make any decision tonight.
Well, the other thing is that this proposal for the extra staff would be if we went the whole high school, right?
Well, I think it
We
would,
need as many staff if we just wanted to do it.
yes, because the entry doors are the same.
But we're talking about a third of the people.
Yes, but it's not the people, it's the doors.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, like, the Chicopee where I come from, they only come in one door, they go out multiple doors. And that's easy to man
But
because,
I mean, I guess from a pure science perspective, if you're only checking in 200 kids with yonder pouches as opposed to 600 kids with yonder pouches, you would think you would need the extra staff for a third of the time to do 200 kids. You wouldn't need the same amount of time to do 200 as you would to do 600.
again, yes, it's location, so you're still thinking, I think, volume of people.
Well,
I'm saying location, so when you set up a table.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of space to maneuver inside of, even though it's a relatively small school, there's quite a bit of space to maneuver there. To make sure that all areas are covered, you need a certain amount of staff. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different avenues that students can go down. To be able to.
Isn't there only the bus entrance and then over by the cafeteria?
Yes, but when you walk in, so the other challenge that we have, and this is something that Yonder asked me as well, is our check-in point is deeper into the building. So our check-in point is not right when students walk in through those first sets of doors, because that would create chaos, because the high school and the middle school enters through the same doors. So when the students come in, they break off and some go right and some go left. And so making sure, when students go right and left, there are other avenues. So making sure that we have tables and staff members to make sure that students are funneling in the right directions to be checked. That's why the staff is, in my opinion, that's why the staff is.
So whether we go with 7, 8 for everybody, we're looking at needing to agree for an additional $12,600 for the extra staff.
So that's up to you guys. That's what I'm,
No, that's
Yeah,
what you're proposing.
based on my experience in looking at the layout of the school and observing the way that students enter the building and observing where our holes are, that's my personal observation. Somebody might have a better answer for that or a better observation based on what I've seen, knowing where I'm coming from and seeing what we have here. That's just my observation. So, yes,
Just a different question on a completely different platform.
yes.
but, I think you were providing us with feedback from the teachers from the 7th and 8th grade.
Yes.
Do they like the yonder pouches?
They love the yonder pouches.
They do.
Yes. Yes, they love the yonder pouches, and for what it's worth, again, I won't speak on behalf of everyone, but through my observations, despite the less effective rollout than we would have wanted, you're still not seeing cell phones being used in class, you're not seeing cell phones being used in the hallway, and you're not seeing cell phones being used at lunch.
But we don't have the data to support what we had hoped, which was that it would reduce the amount of social emotional drama / discipline that we were kind of hoping you take cell phones away, you reduce those scenarios. And we're not seeing that yet, or at least we don't have the data to show that yet.
That data is not supported. So yeah, so you asked me last time about behavior, and behavior based on the data that we talked about in our last meeting, behaviors actually, poor behaviors either increased or stayed the same. So one of the things I think that when we don't talk about, and use the word vacuum again, is you can take away cell phones. But a lot of you guys have been up at the school, you have seen lunch and things like that. When students are sitting at lunch and they're sitting on their cell phones, they're kind of docile, they're calm, they're relaxed most of the time. When you take away a cell phone in the classroom, it doesn't necessarily eliminate all of your problems. So what you now need is, you need a highly engaging classroom at that point, because you need to now replace that device with some really engaging learning. And I think that, you can't just take something away and all your problems are solved. I think that you're gonna create a vacuum. Anytime you do any change, it doesn't matter, we're talking about cell phones right now, but talk about anything. There is some sort of, you don't just take something away and everything's awesome. It creates a hole, and you need to now fill that hole with something, so
Or
that's-
deprogramming,
what's that?
a deprogramming of
Yeah,
the devices to
sure,
learning back in classrooms.
sure, absolutely.
But it sounds like it's gonna cost us both with the right, like, with the
No,
robot,
not
right?
necessarily.
I just wanna,
Yeah.
in terms of, this, what the stipend would be, I am feeling like we should have more conversation about that, so that a stipend for this work would be in alignment with other stipends that we offer for supervisory or short-term work. I'm not necessarily sure that, it would be based on covering a class rate. I think that would probably be a conversation we should have, maybe with union representation, or look at some of our other stipends that we offer, or that we offer, for example, lunch support, and put those in alignment. And I'm in part saying that I heard Mr. Cannell just say it would be $3,000 per person. That sounds significant compared to some of the other things. So, I would request that we have an opportunity to revisit, that thought, and come up with an.
So we're gonna have a school committee meeting on the 4th of June and another one on the 18th, and then we'll be done for the year. Why don't you guys go back? Flush out, I don't think anybody's in disagreement at this point. We could do 7 and 8 so we figure out what's going on. Come back, you let us know whether you want to be on the agenda for the 4th or on the agenda for the 18th. But we gotta obviously figure this out before the end of the year, so we can figure out what's gonna happen in September, right? If we wait on it, then we're not gonna have anything additional for them. They're gonna have just what they basically had this year. If they're looking for additional staff, try to make this smoother.
Mr. Chairman. can
Yes,
we
sir.
approve the policy for the high school?
That's gonna be on another, that'll be next meeting,
Okay.
where they're gonna have the updates for the handbooks.
Okay.
That was on for tonight, but because of everything that we on, and obviously this is one of our good meetings ever. That was why they got pulled. Okay. So that's gonna be the next meeting.
So going back to though that stipend position and the entrances, am I correct that right now all grades enter at those two locations? Is there a way to separate that so that 7th and 8th grade are entering in one entrance and high school is entering in another, or just logistically that doesn't work?
It's not logistically, it's a school safety issue.
Okay,
And the recommendation is as few entry points as possible.
okay,
And at one point in time during the pandemic, we had 4 entrances,
right,
which is less safe and a
Right.
lot more difficult to manage. So now we have a bus entrance
right,
and a student parking lot entrance.
right.
It's not, it ultimately wouldn't be unmanageable. It's It's the piece of getting the routines and having someone committed all the time to doing. As you manage, we have administrators at those spaces, but very, very often them being committed to being there from the moment students are walking in until everyone's in. There's so many interruptions that having an additional adult who's committed to being there
That's their one job.
is important in the absence of.
Because we really need to make sure that the 7th and 8th graders are going this way.
Yeah.
Instead of some of them speaking out through that way and then going through the library. Is that effectively what they're doing?
Yeah, or, yeah, any number of directions, yeah.
And then getting.
Right, like, can't there be a handoff, once we pass the check-in point, that's what I'm like.
Okay, well, perfect. This was very, very helpful.
Okay. All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, where are we? Well, Pam, you have the quickest one. This may be the longest one we ever do. Superintendent Willard. Reports. I don't know whether we haven't been using these for the last 45 minutes. I can, everybody hear us when we're talking. Okay,
Okay.
well, we
All right.
want to go to the microphones.
Okay, so first I just want to report out that last Tuesday, we were able to attend the Grinspoon Award at the log cabin. And we got to celebrate a Powderville teacher, 3rd grade teacher, Michelle Damaris, and it was a great turnout. There's pictures that I think are posted somewhere on Mass Live. Amazing teacher, great support from her teammates. Also Teacher Appreciation Week. So just a reminder to anybody listening at home, our teachers are amazing. They come here every day and work tirelessly for your children. Sometimes even just a handwritten card from your child or from a student means more than anything you could possibly buy for them. So our teachers deserve all the appreciation that we can give them.
It's true.
And last week, we did have the District Attorney's Youth Advisory Board. Somebody already mentioned that. We'll go into detail on that. And also, I just want to do just a quick factual information. There's lots of information out in the news that there's like a huge lawsuit, a monetary lawsuit that was filed against the district that's actually factually inaccurate. What happened was there was a claim put in to the Office of Civil Rights, and I will read to you about opening the complaint for investigation. If the OCR determines that it will investigate the complaint is what it's called, a complaint, it will issue letters of notification to the complainant and the recipient. Need to make it very clear at this time, the district has not received anything from the Office of Civil Rights. So just a complaint had been filed. Opening a complaint for investigation is no way implies that the OCR has made a determination with regard to the merits of the complaint. So they may open it, but it doesn't mean imply any way about a determination. During the investigation, OCR is a neutral fact finder. OCR will collect and analyze relevant evidence from the complainant, the recipient, and other sources as appropriate. OCR will ensure that the actions it takes in investigations are legally sufficient, supported by evidence, and positive of the allegations raised in the complaint. This comes right straight from the Office of Civil Rights website. So I just want to make it really clear because there's a lot of misinformation out there in the news that there's a lawsuit that was filed and it was a complaint filed with the Office of Civil Rights. I also just want to go through a lot of the things. I've been working very closely with the Attorney General over the past few months. In fact, next week, we hope to have a press release that goes out about all the work that we've been doing. When I was talking with her today, we talked about that we want to make it very clear that we are putting an action plan together regarding the work we're doing with William James College, the Addressing the Hate in Sports, which is sponsored by the Attorney General's office. But we also discussed all the things that we have been doing in the past. And we've been working really closely with Dr. Hirschberg for think it's about 7 years now, really about trauma-informed teaching and trauma-informed strategies for our teachers, a big push on social emotional learning, and also how to teach with a culturally responsive lens. And he's been instrumental with providing directed professional development at each school, depending on where the staff is and when they're ready to move forward with differentiated professional development. We also have a connections group at our regional school, and they do a lot with peer mediation. And in fact, last week, they did their anti-bias lesson work with our 8th graders. I think you mentioned something about that, Lucas, where they go into the 8th grade classrooms, and they really do a lot on the anti-bias training. This would be the 3rd or 4th year that they've gone into the 8th grade to do this training. You saw Mike, we've been working with the Anti-Defamation League on all those topics that he mentioned for our teachers for professional development. And 2 years ago, under our in the spring of 2021, we created our DEIB strategic initiative that's on the district strategic plan and also inclusive in the site strategic plans. And Desi was doing, fostering a sense of belonging, and Mike mentioned that in his presentation. And what we used as a data point, because you don't just go into an initiative without using some sort of data. So we used our vocal data that we get when the students take the MCAS, we get information. And we looked at areas where if we wanted to be higher than the state, we weren't, or if we wanted to be lower than the state, we weren't. So those for us were our critical areas. And we took those questions and we give a baseline survey at the beginning of the year to measure our data. And then we also do it at the end of the year. And we really are working, you might even see us modeling it here, the intent versus impact. Because a lot of times we know it's not somebody's intent when they say something, but it's learning to look at it through somebody else's lens to create that empathy, to understand that may not be what you intended, but this is the impact your words had. This is the impact your behavior had. And so our teachers are modeling it. I model it all the time when I'm talking to teachers, because sometimes I could do something and it could be, it doesn't come across the way I intended. I said, I am so sorry that was my impact. That was not my intent. But I need to take ownership for the impact that it had on you. I got you nervous talking about the budget. That wasn't my intent. My intent was just to be transparent, but the teachers got nervous. So it's just language that we're using here. And when we went to the addressing hate in sports, they are now using the intent versus impact. And this is our 3rd year of using it. So it's great to see that, again, we were a little bit ahead of the game with the intent versus impact. We also started our student anti-bullying and racism task group. We had our 2nd meeting yesterday. That's the reason you don't see the handbooks on here, because again, as Pam Petchke was saying, one of my sayings is we go slow to go fast. We don't just want to push something out there or just do something to say we did it and to get it done. We want it to be done. We want it to be done correctly, and we want it to have an impact. And we just felt that we just weren't ready with all of our best intentions to have the handbooks ready. And the kids were like, nope, let's slow on that. I wanted to have anonymous alerts up and running in April. Our students were like, nope, let's go slow. Let's make it the Southwick way. So listening to our student voices, we're gonna do a mock draft of it on our June 6th meeting, and hopefully we'll have it ready to go for this summer. And the last thing that they were working on was presentations and for this year and for next year, and also potential book reads. That is going to be a student-led group who are going to be looking at summer reading books that they feel would be very engaging for students. So really, again, it was my next year initiative about student voice. We started a little bit earlier, but our students have so much to share with us, and we learned so much from just having Lucas on the school committee and Magnolia as well. She's part of our task force. They are an untapped resource that we just need to keep tapping into. So that is what I have. Remember, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And our teachers are amazing. So for teachers who are watching, thank you for everything that you do.
It's Nurses Week too.
Oh, it's Nurses Week. Well, they fall into it.
Huh?
We consider it Paraprofessional Nurses Teacher Week, so they all fall into that.
And any nurses on our school committee, any of those?
Yeah, definitely those nurses on our school committee and teachers on our school committee.
Jen, I had a couple questions about a few of the things that you mentioned.
Sure,
So the vocal data that you mentioned.
yes.
And I know that we had taken initially the state survey and picked out like key questions and sort of created our own.
We did.
Do we implement that every year? Do we implement it
Yes.
pre-post every year?
Yes.
Pre-post each year. It is pre-post every year?
Pre-post each year, we use the same set of 10 questions, but we have changed the wording ever so slightly to fit the developmental level of the kids. So we can link question 1 across all the grades. However, it's written at a 10th grade high school level for at SRS, and we have a version for 3rd and 4th graders in my building. But it links, it's asking around the same time.
And what kinds of decisions do you use that data to inform?
We're looking to see about the student experience and if the conversations that we're having around topics like bullying, reporting, upstanding, if those conversations and the curriculum that we're using is impacting them. So we would see that over time, those scores that we wanted would decrease, or increase depending, the scores are written where some you want high, some you want low. But they would change over time. So our kids in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade might report a much better experience with their classmates, with their peers. They might feel more willing to speak out. And then we would see that decrease. And so we wanted to start to really feel that in the vocal data, they only do it in certain grades. So there'd be gaps. So we weren't sure, so we began by really starting to look at where do we need to put our time and our effort? Where are we seeing these decreases happen? Where are our kids pulling away from some of these core values? So we've done that over time, looking at that each year, working with our adjustment counselors with that social emotional curriculum, bringing this information to the teachers so that we're able to really re-engage those conversations around, that anti-bias, around being an upstander, around, teacher relationships with students.
And Jen, did I understand you correctly? The student anti-bullying task force, are they involved in the revisions of the handbook?
Yes.
In what aspects?
There was a group that met, we reviewed them, when we talked about the changes yesterday in our group, and we, solicited their input. Because one of the things we talked about was, social suspension.
Yes.
That we don't-
Yes, I saw that.
Yes.
I like that terminology.
Yes. So we just asked the kids, do you think that would be effective? So we just asked the kids, these are some things we're thinking of as adults. What's your take on it? How do you think it would work? And, yeah, so.
And the book reads that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Are they intended to be whole school book reads? Are they intended to shape the required summer reading? Are they intended just for kids who choose to participate?
I'm gonna toss that over to Ms. Shorter, because it's her group.
Yeah,
it's
so
her
that came up,
subgroup.
I met with some students as one of the focus areas of the anti-bullying task team. And we were talking about programming and curriculum and all of those pieces. We were talking a little bit about things we've done in the past. And the students on this committee were in middle school when we did the last book read. So they actually, most of them had read Look Both Ways, which we actually had just taken. It's a series of short stories. They had only read some short stories, but they were, and I talked a little bit about what didn't go well and what went well with tuning a book read. They were the ones who said, can we do it again? And can we get involved in that? And that segued into a conversation about how the books for summer reading get selected. And and what, looking at the summer reading list and integrating some of this thinking, or could we do a whole school book read? So we didn't flush it out hugely. What we left it as is, let's make that a conversation for going forward and how. So they're going to connect with, the English department head is the person at this point who's overseeing the summer reading. It might be late to change that for this year, but they're gonna reach out to her and start that conversation. And so there might be some different books that come into summer reading as early as this year, if there's one that's already makes sense. But I think it's a conversation going into next year with that group. But it was initiated by those students.
I was just thinking about tying that into, what we were talking about earlier with regard to the presentations that we want to do with the hate in schools, and how, we start with a big assembly and then we go into smaller focus groups, but then it has to be repeated. If we can kind of tie that into, our selected summer readings, and that really be the focus of summer reading rather than being more curricula based, that could help that language and conversations.
And when we did the book we did several years ago, and Mr. Kamel and I were meeting with a group of students and some teachers and parents who had read the book, and we were talking about that. The question for the group was, so we all think this book is valuable, we all think it's great, so how are we going to use it?
Right.
And summer reading is what came up. And it was the students said, well, if you want everyone to read it,
Right.
you shouldn't do it for summer reading.
Right, it's true.
And that year we were coming out of the pandemic and we weren't doing finals. And so that seemed like a productive use of that last time. However, I do think if you select engaging books that students want to read, summer reading really, and a variety of them, just like we do with the ones that are curriculum based, which this can be twofold. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, right? So yes, I agree that that's a spot.
Thank you.
That it, Superintendent?
That's what I have.
Okay. Mr. Trammell, what do we have?
Busy week next week with town meetings that will dictate the FY 25 budget. We have our dates for the FY 24 audit. The preliminary one will be the first week of June. And the final audit will be in the first week of August. So busy month of July, closing out FY 24 and preparing for the audit in early August. And LPVC is transitioning to a new bus computer system, computer system. The reason I mention this now is when bus information comes out from LPVC about families signing up for the bus and signing up for your route, it's going to be extremely important because it's all new information that's going into the system. And if it's not done by the deadline, there is the chance that you may not have transportation for the start of school. So bus information, transportation information is going to be coming out from LPVC and school district in the next couple of weeks. And it's going to be important to adhere to those deadlines.
Right.
Yeah.
People to read.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna
Are we're gonna put this on the website too, I'm assuming.
We will send, it will be sent out in multiple ways from school district and LPVC and try to make it in the most user-friendly way and the easiest way for families to record the information and send the information to us or LPVC.
Can we consider sending it out like we do if we cancel school? Send it out.
Yeah, we did that last year as well. We'll continue to do that. Yeah.
Text message, phone call. I mean, this is obviously important if they've had years and years that, oh, I forgot to do it. I mean, myself included, then you get to in the fall, you're like, oh, yeah, we can just take care of it now.
I think last year I sent them between 500 and 600 names by August 1st. Is that what it was, Aaron? And then there's 1,200 that, are needed. So if we were to run into that situation, if we were to put LPVC in that situation again this year, we could have some upset families come the first day of school. So we want to avoid that.
Okay. Awesome. That's all I got?
That's all I got.
Okay. You got nothing for policy? All right, action item. Superintendent Willard.
Move to approve consent agenda items as listed above recommended.
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the Southwick Talley Granville Regional School Committee hereby extends its congratulations to Lucas Karen and recognition of dedicated service as a student representative to the school committee. We hereby convey our sincere appreciation for your valuable efforts, dedicated service, and assistance rendered, which has enhanced the image of the Southwick Talley Granville Regional Schools, and a record of these resolutions shall be permanently entered into the minutes of this school district. Highly recommended.
So moved.
Seconded.
Can I get a show of hands to approve the motion? Aaron, let the record show the motion passes 8-0.
Go.
It's the only time, Lucas, in the history of this school district, as a regional district, that a vote is 8-0.
Wow. I'm happy to be the first, what can I say?
All right, so in state of time, subcommittees and liaisons, does anybody have anything pertinent that we need to bring up at this point?
That was one up for LPVAC, so.
Oh, you already
nothing
got,
to say.
Jen stole your thunder.
No, Joe did.
Oh, Joe, oh, right. Joe, and Joe's done, so, no. All right, does anybody have anything from any of the committees for? All right, take that as enough. We were at public comment. We had 2 people that signed up, and Mr. Dougherty had to leave for a meeting. And I believe Cindy Lamoureux is not here. Okay. Committee discussion, old business. All right, Superintendent Willard's evaluation. I apologize for the delay in getting this to everybody. As everybody knows, I was away for a couple weeks out of country. Thank you, everybody, for filling out. It's not color. I don't know, maybe some Fresno shut down the color. He wasn't here, but they didn't print the color for us. Okay, Steve, what do you got? I don't know if this is in Word. I don't know how easy this is gonna be to kind of do on the overhead. We are gonna add this to the minutes. So anybody that wants to see this as soon as this gets distributed out on YouTube, and in the minutes on the website, this evaluation will be attached. I am gonna move through this rather quickly, and I'm certainly not gonna read all of the goals and all the insights, that takes another hour to read all them. Superintendent had 4 goals this year. How this summary and how this evaluation goes is the first section. What we're doing is we send out a survey to all 7 of the school committee members. They are then asked to evaluate the superintendent on each one of the items that we're gonna go over here quickly. I then, as the chairman, put this together in a summary form, so that we can present it at this meeting. It is not meant to be read verbatim, it's to kind of go over the highlights. As I said, all school committee members received a copy of this, the superintendent received a copy of this. The public will get a chance to see this, turn on YouTube real quickly, but it'll be attached to the minutes when the meeting gets posted. So, as I said, superintendent had 4 goals. Overall, she did very, very well. We had goal number 1, which was we were working on the science of reading. We had one with significant progress, 5 that met, identified that she met the goals, and 1 that exceeded. Her second goal, there are some comments here at the end of each section. Her second goal is a professional practice goal, working on focus indicators, continuous learning. Again, she had a very good result. We had 1 with significant progress, 5 with met, 1 with exceeded. Her third goal was a district improvement goal, and we were looking at aligning our policies with educational reform law. We've got 3 with significant progress, 3 that are met, 1 that's exceeded. We are still currently in the middle of that policy realignment and review in the policy committee. I certainly agree with the significant movement. We've made some great strides, and we are unfortunately still waiting for information back from Mass, but I would assume hopefully before the end of the year, and if not next year, we're gonna be doing a lot of approving of the policy adjustments that we've been making. The 4th goal is another district improvement goal. This is looking at management and operations, obviously dealing with developing a budget. We got some challenges, obviously, with the other ESSER funds going away this year. She scored another very strong scores in this from everybody. We had 5 that identified that she met the goal and 2 that exceeded. Sure, I don't miss a page here. Okay, so now we go into some of these standards. So standard 1, which is the instructional leadership, this gets broken out. The way that this evaluation is done is there are certain areas in each standard the superintendent is evaluated. So the first one was the evaluation. We're talking about effective, timely supervision evaluation of all staff. She scored extremely well. We had 6 scores of proficient, 1 with exemplary. The next one was data informed decision making, looking at the data, organizing it from performance, educator effectiveness. Again, we had a strong result. We had 5 with proficient, 2 with exemplary. We had IF, which was student learning, looking at the impact on student learning based on multiple measures of strength, learning, growth, and achievement. We had another strong evaluation where we get 5 with proficient, 2 with exemplary. The overall ratings for standard 1, we had 5 proficient, 2 exemplary. So that takes in to account the scores of the other 3. We kind of roll it into an overall standard. There are comments for each standard. I'm not going to go through and read each one of these. These can certainly be read by superintendent, each individual committee member, and the public once this is sort of published for everybody. Going on to standard 2, we have management and operations, and the ones that we looked at this year were law, ethics, and policies. Looking at promoting learning and growth of all students and the success of staff, ensuring a safe, efficient, effective learning environment. We had 3 with proficient, 4 with exemplary for her, and that score. Fiscal systems, we're looking at developing the budget, which scored a 4 with proficient, 3 with exemplary. The overall rating for standard 2 is we had 5 for proficient, 2 for exemplary. So she again scored very, very highly on both of these areas. And we've got a number of positive comments here. In here with obviously with the changing of the ESSER funds, this gave the superintendent and her team a challenge this year to try to make sure that we could get a budget on the table that was allowing us to continue to achieve our goals, but also dealing with the financial limitations of running out of some of these ESSER funds to deal with the issues that we had identified before. Standard 3, family and community engagement. Under communications, regular 2-way culturally proficient communications with families and stakeholders. We've got 1 needs improvement. We've got 3 proficient and 3 exemplary. There was only 1 area that was tagged under communication, so that why there's not an overall summary, because when you've only got 1 assigned, we don't have any averages. So that's where that is, and we've got comments there by the school committee members for this section. Standard 4, under professional culture, we had again 1 section of that area was being assessed, so there's not an average of this. We had development nurturing the culture in which staff members both the practices and use student data, current research, best practice, theory to continuously adapt instruction. She scored 6 proficient scores and 1 exemplary. And we've got the comments in that section there below. Now this is where I always try to follow this, how the state has set this up, and once we get to this section, it's almost becomes sort of redundant. What we, I
So annoying.
know, this is, I didn't create the assessment, I just have to present something, so don't shoot the messenger.
I know, it's so.
So a lot of this is going to summarize all of these. So assess progress towards goals. We've got student learning, which is really overall goal number 1. We've got 1 with significant progress, 1 to 5 with met, 1 with exceeding. Professional practice goal, we've got again 1, 5, and 1. District improvement goal number, district improvement goals. So her 3rd goal, we have 2 for significant progress, 4 for met, 1 with exceeded. And then we've got the 2nd district improvement goal, which is her 4th goal. was broken down where we got 6 with met and we got 1 with exceeded. Then it goes into the performance on the standards. And I did break down for everybody what each sort of score defines. And there was 4 options for us, and all of the other things, we had 5. So this section, it gave us 4 options, whether we had unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. For her standard 1 under instructional leadership, we had 5 scores of proficient, 2 of exemplary. The management and operations, again, we had 5 proficient, 2 exemplary. The family and community engagement, we had 1 needs improvement, 3 proficient, 3 exemplary. Standard 4 under professional culture, we had 6 proficient, 1 exemplary. And the overall summative performance, we had 5 proficient, 2 exemplary. I've got the comments that the school committee members inputted for these overall sections. Again, I'll let everybody read those on their own. I certainly want to commend the superintendent for her performance and her demeanor this year. We've certainly gone through some significant challenges. I think you handled yourself professionally. Your composure was fantastic. We are certainly in addressing some items that we certainly have identified in the district that need to get corrected and amended. I think the direction that you have taken and addressed with the district, with the goals and all the initiatives that we've got identified and that we're rolling into place, I think they're going to be very helpful. At this point, I'm going to open this up to any other school committee members that want to make a comment. But thank you very much, Superintendent Willard. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, please stay with us. It's long.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you. So, we got next. Okay, just under old business, I just want to touch base on this real quick. The advisory committee for the school committee that we approved last meeting. There's a number of different ways that we can sort of tackle this according to our own policies. The committee is going to ultimately determine who's on that advisory committee. So I think what might be the best, and I'm certainly open to suggestions here. I was just thinking, I know we've all sort of talked about a couple people that we thought would be great to have on that committee. I think it might be advantageous for us to open up public requests. If anybody is out there that wants to be part of this committee, if there are students that want to be part of this committee, if there are teachers that want to be part of this committee, I think they should reach out to the principal, Superintendent Willard. Is that the best group for them to go? Or?
Aaron,
Aaron, okay.
I would say Aaron.
So if we have any teachers or any of the staff that want to be part of this, reach out to Aaron, submit your request, just indicate that you're interested to be considered. Any students can reach out to who, us?
I would say Aaron. I just keep it all concentrated.
We'll send it
Yeah.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how are we going to get that word out? That, you know, many people have reached out with their thoughts and insights. We have moved forward to create this advisory committee. If you are interested in being a part of it, you know, please, like, how are we going to?
No,
We send out an email from the school.
And I think Russ has been like really focused on like, these are the types of things we should get the press to write the stories out, to really get it out
Yep.
there to the community. Because we can send things out, but it's just gonna go to people already in our school. But if we really want to get the community involved, I think we should send something to Cliff at Mass Live
Yeah.
and have him write, or that, you know, the Southwick is looking for people to participate. If they have interest in it, then they should reach out to Aaron Mountain with the contact information.
We can send these also out to the individual towns.
Yep, like
Make
we
sure that they
did.
can put those
Yep.
on their websites. We
Yep.
can put it on our website.
Mhm,
I think that's a great idea, sending it out to Cliff so that he can get it out to Mass Live.
mhm.
I mean, look, we've got an opportunity now where we open this up now. We collect all the names and everything towards the end of the year, and then at the beginning of next year, we start looking to put this committee together.
Yeah, this should not be a handpicked thing
No.
by us.
I don't.
This, I
agree
mean,
with
there are certainly people that have reached out to us individually. It would be our role to say, hey, listen, we're putting this ball in your court. If you are still interested, please contact.
Yep. Yeah, I think we should have as many options that are out there, and then the committee can figure out what the best people will be to be on this. And just to make sure everybody understands, even the school committee members as well, this is an advisory committee to the school committee. They would meet on their own. They would then report back to us with a regular cadence that we would determine. They have no authority to implement anything. They can recommend stuff to us, but then the recommendation will be brought up by the committee, discussed by the committee, and decided by the committee what we were going to implement from their recommendation. So, and it would be something that the chair would, at the appropriate time, that's not a committee and we would decide when we set this up, how long we think this committee would be active for. And then once that time is done, we would close down the committee. Anybody got any questions?
Not right now.
Okay, super. Mr. Fox?
No.
Oh, another. All right, new business, only thing I've got on there is because of Southwick Town meeting on the 21st. We are going to cancel the May 21st, school committee meeting. So our next meeting will be June the 4th, right? Aaron, June the 4th. 4th and the 18th. And then we will be done for the year. I, at this point, will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can I get a show of hands to, adjourn the meeting? Eric, the record show that we, yeah, look at that. The
Oh,
record
yeah.
show the motion passed 8-0.
Forgot that.
You did good. Thank everybody. Have a great evening.